Ordered arms. The shop was so exclusive that it didn't even have a name above the door. Tucked down a side street in an upscale part of the city's third level, it was nothing more than a blank facade of polished stone, boasting only a single window, holding a lifelike mannequin dressed in a fitted suit of men's clothes, and a hardwood door that was worn with age and use. Etched into the stone above the door was what looked like a shield with some kind of weasel on it. Gabriel Masters looked up at that shield for a long moment. He heard a patrol vehicle on the main street behind him and felt the skin on the back of his neck tighten until it cruised on past. He tucked his hands into the pockets of his old service pea coat, and for just a second he thought about turning around and going right back to his flop down in the sub-level hab gutters. This had all the makes of a snipe hunt, and it was only a matter of time until a scanner or a sharp-eyed jackboot recognized him, and then it would all be over. His fingertip brushed the card in his pocket, though, and he remembered why he'd even considered coming up to this level in the first place. He sniffed through his broken nose, opened the shop door, and stepped inside. Bolts of cloth hung on racks of sample spools, each one bearing a handwritten label regarding what it was and where it had come from. The ceiling lamps were recessed, creating a gentle glow that lit the place without hurting the eyes, and the lack of telltale thrum of fluorescent or sodium arc bulbs left the place nearly silent. Cases full of gleaming metal accessories, from tie pins to cufflinks to hat badges, were displayed in tall cabinets like medals in a shadow box. The air smelled of men's cologne, boot polish, and just a hint of cleaner's lemon. There were no prices on anything, which meant that it was all expensive, and that if you needed to ask how expensive it was, then you probably couldn't afford it. The place was too rich for Gabriel's blood, but worse than that, it smelled like a trap. He was about to go right back out the way he'd come in, when movement caught his eye. "May I be of some assistance, sir?" a man asked as he stepped out from behind the counter. He was tall and lean, and though he was dressed in a smart suit, Gabriel recognized his type instantly. He had hard eyes, and there were scars near the man's collar that he couldn't hide. His movements were careful and precise as well, as if he were completely aware of where every part of him was in relation to everything around him. Positional awareness, the instructors back at the unit had called it, and it was a habit you never lost once it had been drilled into you. Moving slowly, Gabriel took the card he'd been given out of his pocket and offered it. "Fervus Equus," Gabriel said. The man took the card and glanced at first one side, then the other. Then he tucked it away in an inside pocket. "Argentum Armiger," he said, placing his right hand over his heart in a smart salute. He favored Gabriel with a smile that was razor thin, but seemed genuine enough. "Welcome, Captain Mastis. I have been expecting you. If you'll follow me." The man turned and stepped into one of the rear fitting rooms. Gabriel glanced toward the shop's door one more time, but after a second's hesitation, he followed the slender figure. Gabriel stepped into a room with a tri-fold mirror, subtle hinged workbenches tucked into the walls, and a plush carpet that swallowed the sounds of footsteps on the floor. The door closed behind him with a soft sigh and a sharp click. "What is the nature of the situation you're dealing with, Captain?" the man asked Gabriel. "There's a security services task force running the gangs throughout the whole lower sector," Gabriel said. "Drugs, burglary, trafficking, murder for hire, you name it, they're doing it." "I see," the tailor said, nodding once. "And you have the details on this operation?" "I've got intel for days," Gabriel said, his mouth turning sour as he reminded himself not to spit. "Names, addresses, appointments, black books, all of it. Higher-ups in this town threatened to throw me in a cube if I tried to make a fuss about it, and I don't have the tools to get the job done myself." The thin smile appeared on the tailor's face again. "I believe that is where I can be of some assistance." The tailor turned and placed his palm flat against the center of the mirror. There was an electronic beep of acknowledgement, and then the mirror swung inward to reveal a hidden room. It had the same subtle lighting as the main room of the shop, the same hardwood accents, and the same plush carpets. The difference was that instead of bolts of cloth and fashionable accessories, The walls were lined with racks of weapons, stands of body armor, and neatly labeled cases of ammunition. Gabriel stepped through the looking glass and breathed deeply of the perfume of brass and gun oil. He frowned, his eyes raking over the armory, logging every item he recognized. "These aren't civilian-supplied arms," Gabriel said. "You have a good eye, Captain," the tailor replied, crossing to a cabinet filled with a display of rifles and opening the case. "I would recommend the Manticore 2.4 as a primary armament. Fire selection gives you the ability to change strategies on the fly, and the ammunition type is the most common one found in the unlicensed markets. It has plenty of stopping power, but little in the way of overpenetration." "I'm familiar with the weapon," Gabriel said. "I had a feeling that would be the case," the tailor replied, lifting the weapon out of the rack, locking back the bolt and examining the rifle before handing it to Gabriel. "Do you have a preference on your sidearm? I'm partial to the Hydra myself." Gabriel glanced around the room one more time, taking it all in before he returned his attention to the tailor. "Am I on some kind of operating budget?" This time, the tailor's smile flashed his teeth. "No, sir. Whatever it takes to get the job done."